Braxton Garrett will miss opening day, likely headed to the IL for at least the first time through this rotation. However, the Marlins, do they have a ready-made replacement in AJ Puk? Edward Cabrera, no walks thus far in spring. Oh, baby, this rotation looking real nice. This is Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked On Marlins. It's your daily Marlins podcast. I'm your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up at Miami Marlins _UK on X. Thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen. This is your team every day, baby. There is a YouTube channel as well, guys. Make sure you hit subscribe over on YouTube as well. That channel is named Locked On Marlins. Hit subscribe, join the comments in particular, guys. If you are watching, you have the rundown to help you as well. We're talking pitching. A lot of pitching updates. The Marlins were rained out. It was supposed to be a doubleheader. Doubleheader on Sunday. No action, rained out. Everyone slides back, it seems. And so we've got a lot of pitching talk going on here on Locked On Marlins today. We need to talk about AJ Puk. We need to talk about Edward Cabrera. We need to talk about Tanner Scott. Boy, oh boy. Not the greatest of starts in spring for Tanner Scott. And we need to talk about Braxton Garrett, have some updates there from Skip Schumacher and what that means for him heading towards opening day. Before we do that, this episode is sponsored by our friends over at FanDuel. You can make every moment more. New customers join today and you get $150 in bonus bets. If your first bet of $5 or more wins, just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And guys, where are we starting today? Let's start with Braxton Garrett. It's at the bottom of the rundown, but really, Braxy, this kind of sets the scene. And actually, it's why it's so important why the guys at the top of this rundown, AJ Puk and Edward Cabrera. And I shouldn't forget about that Trevor Rogers. Trevor's just about finished his day's efforts. This being recorded and published on Tuesday, the 5th of March. Trevor Rogers just making his return, and it looked like a clean return. Ryan Weathers, the Marlins ace, then came into the game as well. Seen one inning of that, and it was in the main clean. There was a pickoff as well from Ryan Weathers. Brooklyn style, baby, from Ryan Weathers. Love to see that. But Braxton Garrett, we're getting news around Brax. Things are progressing in the right direction. But Skip Schumacher calling out that it's unlikely he will be ready for opening day. So Braxy Garrett going to be working his way back. And, this is expected, I would say. As soon as we heard about this shoulder issue, a new issue for him, then it was clear that he was kind of tracking behind. It's been pretty obvious, I would say, for a while that Braxy's unlikely to make this rotation to start the year. The reality is, it's not all about who's available on opening day. The Marlins have tons of depth. And so, Brax missing the start is no big deal, to be honest. It's fine. And as long as Brax is kind of not rushed and is back and healthy, I'm all good. It's fine. The Marlins have got decisions to make with the rotation at this point. Let's assume everyone's healthy. There's still going to be decisions to be made around guys like Ryan Weathers, around guys like Max Meyer, guys like Brian Hoeing. The Marlins have got options. They have options. It's not critical. It's not going to be fatal to them for their season that Braxton Garrett's going to maybe miss let's just say 2 turns through the rotation. We hope that's the case because I've seen it before with these Marlins injuries where it feels innocuous and the Marlins are reporting it like it's innocuous. The player makes it feel like it's innocuous. Next thing is they're out for half a season. It's completely the opposite to what happens with the Bravos. You get a Ronald Acuna twinge. It feels bad. Next thing is Acuna's there kind of joking with the media, walking with a bat, limping, but it's a fake limp. Ronald Acuna's out there taking BP and basically saying, I'm ready to go today. How did the Braves do it? How do they manage to do it with the injury front? But all jokes aside, Braxy trending in the right direction. He is progressing. Let's hope that it isn't something super long-term, because he was a big part of the rotation, obviously, Brax. Like one of the guys that, career high for innings, but had a really nice year, like under the radar year, Braxton Garrett, which was really impressive. So with Brax gone, for me, that opens up a spot clearly. Craig Mish reporting earlier that this really opens up a spot. Specifically, he says, for AJ Puk. I've spoken about Puk quite a bit over this offseason, primarily that I disagreed with the decision to stretch him out. I then saw his first outing and was like, oh baby, this looks filthy. When you realize what a repertoire AJ Puk has that you didn't see as a closer reliever at all. You basically just saw the same dude out there throwing the same pitches. And all of a sudden, the mentality of being a starter kind of just unlocks everything. I must say I was mightily impressed that first time around. And then he didn't disappoint second time around, which again is kind of why you're solidified here, where like AJ Puk, you're feeling like, okay, there's a guy here you can depend on in the rotation. And only, this isn't just like an AJ Puk, is he a fifth starter? You're looking at him thinking, this guy could be dangerous, really dangerous. So yesterday in the Yankees game, again, the Marlins and Yankees, they love playing out these low-scoring affairs. AJ Puk ends up throwing 46 pitches, 26 of them for strikes. He goes 3 complete innings of work. He gave up a hit, 2 walks, 6 Ks. His ERA across those 2 appearances, 0.00. So AJ Puk, from a run prevention perspective, remains perfect on the year. Really impressive. AJ Puk was supposed to go on Sunday. So I think that's another interesting little wrinkle here, the fact that his start was pushed. Obviously, the rain came in, et cetera, et cetera. His start was pushed. He's then able to be ready the next day and go the next day and pitch well, seemingly, for AJ Puk. I didn't see the game myself. I'm just looking at the box scores and going off what I've kind of seen on Twitter, really. So all indications looking great for AJ Puk, to be honest with you. You end up then, because of that situation where they had to push him backwards, you end up with a piggyback situation yesterday where it was like, okay, Puk's going to go and then Eddie Cabrera is going to follow up. And so Cabrera then was taking the ball after Puk and his day was done. Cabrera, by the box score, okay, let's just talk about it anyway. 3 innings, I'm just going to go straight to the walks. 0 walks for Eddie. 3 innings, 0 walks, 3 Ks, gave up 4 hits. However, it was only, 3 innings of work, 30 pitches. And the other thing, 22 for strikes. Eddie Cabrera is showing signs of improvement here. This is kind of what Skip's been asking for. Pound the zone, Eddie. Trust the stuff and pound that zone. And we're seeing that as well already here from Eddie Cabrera. So really, really encouraging. He's made 2 appearances thus far in spring. His ERA also sits at 0.00. Perfect from Eddie. And listen, as we've seen, and we've spoken about tons, particularly in the last few weeks where these kind of trade rumors spiked up. He is, some small tweaks away from being a, top of the rotation arm, to be honest with you. Like you look at his savant profile and it looks like a top of the rotation arm apart from that walk bubble. If that walk bubble normalizes to mid, just average, then boy, oh boy, you've got one hell of a pitcher for the Marlins there. On league minimum, by the way. Also a guy that has had issues with injury as it goes. More about Eddie Cabrera coming up. Plus, I want to talk about Tanner Scott and his slow start to spring. We'll also talk about some Trevor Rogers action as well after his season debut. An impressive one at that too. But before we do that, time to let you know about our good friends over at PrizePicks. Yes, sir. We've got a new sponsor going on here, so absolutely love that. Guys, and PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. We are the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks. Got to watch out for them sharks. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in, baby. So football season may be over, but the action on the floor is heating up, whether it's tournament season or the fight for playoff home court. There's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of the year. Get in on the excitement with PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. And you can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks. With as little as 4 correct picks, you can turn $10 into 1,000 with NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today on PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. So, what do you have to do? Where have you got to go? Here we go. You need to download the app. Firstly, you got to download the app today, and you got to use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. So, reminder, download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy from PrizePicks. Love it. Love it. You're back here with me, Peter Pratt, on Tuesday, the 5th of March. We're talking Marlins pitching, baby. It is absolutely the strength of this organization right now. Throughout spring, everyone is showing up. All of the starters are showing up. It's so encouraging. Even Sixto Sanchez is creating emergency podcasts. That's what's going on with this Marlins organization. I half-jokingly tweeted out this morning after seeing some of the numbers from last night that the Marlins have 4 potential Cy Young candidates, not even including Sixto Sanchez for 2024. To be honest with you, I'm not even joking. Like, I know it's hard to understand. Like, is Pete being serious? Like, is he really serious about this? I don't think so. He probably isn't. There's no reason why Jesus Luzardo, Yuri Perez, AJ Puk, and Edward Cabrera could all be in the Cy Young conversation, frankly. Like, if they hit their ceilings, then they're in the conversation. They hit their innings and their ceilings, their performance ceilings. You have 4 guys, in my opinion, that have the type of stuff that would turn Cy Young voters' heads. No doubt about it. They do. All 4 of them guys. So, this is why I'm super high on the Marlins rotation at this point. I know we're talking about Braxy as well, and he's obviously struggling, for the start of the year. Trevor Rogers could slide in there. We'll see how it goes. We'll see. It looks like Trevor has a decent chance. I thought maybe Trevor was behind, but after today, maybe not. But you slide Trevor in there. Jesus Luzardo, Yuri Perez, AJ Puk, Edward Cabrera, Trevor Rogers. I don't care who you are. I don't care which organization you are. That rotation is up there with any of them. And actually, all that rotation has probably the biggest upside and ceiling of any rotation out there. Frankly, we could even say if Trevor Rogers bounces back to like 2020 Trevor, then you potentially have 5 Cy Young candidates going on here. And I appreciate, and I'm doing a disservice to Braxton Garrett. He flew under the radar last year. He was great. The depth of pitching in this Marlins organization is truly phenomenal. It truly is. And this is why, when we're talking about trading guys, for flyer prospects, to be honest with you, I'm like, come on. It's so valuable. The value of this pitching with this age, this ceiling, this upside is immense. It's truly immense. And that's why the Marlins haven't got any deals done this offseason. They're trying to get some deals done, but Peter Bendix is standing firm in his trade negotiation, and rightly so. There's no need to sell off. There's no need to fire sale dudes. No need. There's no rentals. We'll talk about one rental, Tanner Scott, after the second act. But from a rotation perspective, there's no rentals. Everyone's young. Everyone's got tons of upside. And look what's happening elsewhere in the market. You're getting Zach Wheeler signing a 3-year, 120-something million contract. 40 million, over 40 million AAV in that contract. And most likely, and the Phillies will know this too, that likely becomes an actual AAV of probably more like 60 million. Because gut feel, considering the body of work we've seen from Zach Wheeler in the past few years, sometime in the next 3, he'll probably miss one of them years because that's just what the odds say. The Phillies will know that. Zach Wheeler will know that. So at some point, I reckon they'll probably get at best 2 years of the 3 years of production out of Zach Wheeler. I'm not wishing any injuries on anyone. That isn't the point. The point is, we've seen it with Sandy. These guys, these workhorses, at some point, it's going to catch up. And Zach Wheeler, it'll probably catch up. And most likely, it'll be this year, to be honest with you. The Phillies have paid a lot of dough to keep the same team, effectively. Problem is, if the injuries hit, then that team gets worse and they've got no money to do anything about it. The Phillies, to me, are basically doing what the Mets did the year before. And we saw what happened with the Mets. We saw it. Aging rotation. Next thing is it's hurt. Next thing is you're selling at the deadline. I'm not saying that's what the Phillies will do, but man, oh man, it looks pretty similar to what the Mets did. Spent a load of dough. We want to keep everyone because we feel like they're a good team. But as always, age, health, regression, all these things kick in. Next thing is you're looking going, that contract ain't looking so sexy anymore. Wait to see with Zach Wheeler. But the point from a Marlins perspective is just look. Eddie Cabrera in that upside, AJ Puk in that upside. You know, these guys, super cheap in comparison, multi-years of control here. It's phenomenal. Even Jesus Luzardo, the ace of the staff. And I mean, you can pick your poison. And I mean, who is the ace? Is it Ryan Weathers? It could be. But the ace of the staff still got 3 years of control. Yes, it's arbitration control, but man, oh man, as Marlins fans, listen, we haven't had a ton to get excited about on the offensive side. And we know there's offensive deficiencies. We know there is. You know, we've taken a step back with Soler, you know, not being re-signed. Doesn't feel like the Marlins, based on conversation with Danny Alvarez, that the Marlins were ever serious about Soler, and Soler knew that. So they haven't replaced Soler. Do they still have time to replace Soler? Yeah, they do. Can they replace him in JD Martinez? Yes, they can. There's no reason why they can't. If they can get JD Martinez to sign to a 1 year between 10 and 15, the Marlins should absolutely pull the trigger on that. They should absolutely do it. The reason they weren't interested in Soler is because Soler wanted 3 years, and the Marlins are operating in a 1 year only policy. That's what they're showing us. That's what we got to live with. And the question then comes at the back end of free agency every year, who's willing to take the 1 year deal? Tim Anderson is. Is JD Martinez? Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. We'll wait and see. But the Marlins are going to badly miss Soler, and they really badly need JD Martinez, to be honest with you. So, you know, the offense, you know, is still a concern. But after a long meandering point, the rotation at this point is absolutely not a concern. Even considering Sandy's down for the whole year, Brax is missing, but you're still looking around going, this is still a strength. And there's still depth. Still depth. Even if those two guys, even when 40% of your starting projected rotation are down, you're still feeling really confident. And that is such a wonderful position for the Marlins to be in. They're so good at that. And they're so good at developing pitching. It's truly amazing. And Mel Stottlemyre, you know, what he can do. If he can get Eddie Cabrera fixed and we can unlock AJ Puk and keep him healthy, it's always about health, but you can unlock AJ Puk into like a 4 or 5 pitch guy that can, you know, truly swing it as a starter, then boy, oh boy, that is extremely, extremely enticing. We're going to talk about the bullpen because whilst we've talked a lot about the starting pitching situation and how wonderful it has been, man, oh man, the bullpen and the big guys and the big pieces in the pen, it's not been a good spring thus far. Skip Schumacher out there making excuses. Is that the right way of phrasing it? He gave an explanation, so we'll talk about that shortly. But before we do that, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and you can get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That is $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams, with quick bets, my favorite, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, guys, back here with me, Peter Pratt, on Tuesday, the 5th of March on Locked On Marlins. Thanks for joining me and making Locked On Marlins your first listen, guys. You can tell I'm excited about this rotation. Extremely excited. I'm extremely excited about what I'm seeing. I mean, what's the biggest surprise in spring thus far? Is it AJ Puk or is it Eddie Cabrera? I mean, they're the two kind of obvious. I'm throwing my dog in there as well, Ryan Weathers. Tell me, of those three dudes, who's been the biggest surprise, Puk, Cabrera, or Weathers? If two, I don't know what's happening with Trevor Rogers. Is he on schedule? It's the 5th now, 28th. What's that? It's just over 3 weeks. Could Trevor build right up to be a starter in 3 weeks? Probably can, to be honest. I mean, everyone will be managed first couple of weeks anyway. 80 pitches and yanked. So I think Trevor, if he's healthy, could be in the mix. He has options too, so he could be optioned. They don't have to use Trevor Rogers. So we'll see. The Marlins have decisions to make. But right now, Puk, Cabrera, or Weathers, who's been your biggest surprise? Nevertheless, all of them, to see them performing as they are. I know it's only spring, and I know the hitters are behind, and the Marlins hitters are behind. Boy, oh boy, it's been slow. But it's encouraging, no doubt about it. Brax is going to be missing. They need these guys to step up. And this Marlins roster clearly is built on the starting rotation still. The bullpen last year was nails, but the rotation needs to be strong. The rotation strong, the bullpen nails, then it can slightly offset what looks like a below par offensive group. We hope the offense takes a step forward, and we'll talk about that as the next couple of weeks roll on, and particularly as the hitters start to get going. Like I mentioned before the ad, there's no reason why the Marlins can't add to this group. It means you have to move on from Avisail Garcia, to be honest with you, though. Like, even if you bring in JD Martinez, you have to move Avisail Garcia. You have to cut him. He was poor again yesterday. We know where we're at with Avi now. It feels like a lost cause and a sunk cost, but we'll keep rolling. Let's talk about Tanner Scott, because Tanner Scott yesterday, he came in after 6 innings of quality work from Puk and Cabrera, and Tanner Scott didn't get one out and walked 4 guys in a row. 4 guys. He walked the bases juiced and 1 in. No outs, Tanner Scott. Man, oh man. His ERA sits at 94.5 right now. That's 2 rancid outings for Tanner Scott. Skip Schumacher came after the game and said, "It's my fault. I am managing Tanner in the wrong way. He's out of his groove. He wants to be out there every day." Tanner Scott. We saw some of that actually from him last year. Like, we needed Tanner Scott. The Marlins playing so many one-run games. It was like, just keep rolling them guys out there and see what happens. So, Skip Schumacher out there. Is he making excuses? I don't think he needs to make excuses for Tanner Scott, frankly. This isn't excuse making. I think this is just the reality. The reality that, that's how Tanner likes to work. He's not found his groove yet. He's not pitching frequently enough to be in his groove. So I'm really interested to see how Skip kind of manages that over the next few weeks. Tanner Scott at this point, let's assume the Marlins are like in the mix this year. He's going to be pitching a lot of meaningful innings for the Marlins. A lot of meaningful innings. So you need to burn him now. Absolutely. And it felt like, let's remember 2023. It felt like Skip Schumacher's bullpen management, like, it was aggressive. It was aggressive because there were so many close games, and he had his guys and he just wheeled them out there. Did feel like that did impact the bullpen a touch as the year went on. And so, there's a lot that goes into this, a lot of decisions for Skip, and I'm really interested to see how Skip, if he does, adjust the way he manages his pen, particularly the leverage guys, and who those guys will be too. And that's where I'm like excited about, what role could Max Meyer play in that bullpen? I know he's seen as a starter, and I absolutely see him as a starter too at this point until he tells me differently. But at the same time, I could see Max, making an impact in the pen, just being another guy that you can lean on, not just like, can we just go to Nardi and Scott over and over. It's like, great, you got Max Meyer in there too. It's another option. So is it time to be concerned about Tanner Scott? No, not yet. Clearly, 2 outings. They were both poor. Okay. It's the life of a reliever. It is what it is. Clearly, though, with Tanner Scott, there is no proven track record with Tanner Scott. There's been a stunning year in 23 where, frankly, he's one top 3 relievers in the game. It's unbelievable season for Tanner Scott. What have we seen prior to that? We haven't seen anywhere near that. So it was a massive step forward for Tanner Scott. Can he repeat it? Listen, the history, your experience, your gut feel tells you, a bit like as we walked into 2023 with Sandy. We think back, we were like, are we going to see the same from Sandy? We were like, in our heart of hearts, we were expecting probably a step back. And I'd take, from a Tanner Scott perspective, say, remove the probably and say likely. Like, Sandy's different. He's just different generally. And he still did regress a touch because his year was just so good. It was an outlier. Tanner Scott's year last year was an outlier for him. So we're expecting some regression here. What we can't see is the type of regression we saw yesterday with 4 walks in a row and, no outs. Like, we didn't see any of that from Tanner Scott, but we definitely saw a control and command issue in 22. So this is it. Like, which Tanner Scott you're going to get? And if we don't get 2023 Tanner Scott, then all of a sudden that puts a lot of pressure on the pen, no doubt. And probably gets you thinking about, well, do we need Max Meyer in there? Like, is Max Meyer going to be the closer? Like, could Max Meyer end up as your right-handed closer if needed? Like, could, if Scott falls off a cliff? I don't know. But, the thing is, Max Meyer is going to be needed as a starter because, everyone's going to be dinged up. You know the drill. You'll be digging deep into your depth chart. We know that. We know it. And so Max Meyer will be needed to start games. So I'd be surprised if he ended up in that role. But who knows? Who knows? The good thing is Anthony Bender's back. Anthony Bender pitched again yesterday, another clean inning. That's, I think, 3 clean innings for Anthony Bender. Andrew Nardi pitched as well. A couple of walks for Nardi, but got out of it unscathed. Nardi's still sitting at a 0 ERA. So, it's Tanner Scott that's the main concern at this point. Skip Schumacher's made some excuses as to why. Let's see how Tanner Scott's then managed through spring. Equally, I think we all in our heart of hearts know that Tanner Scott's year in 24 is not going to be as good as 23. It's just by what margin? By what margin is Tanner Scott regressing to? And does that mean the Marlins end up using him differently? Do you ride the hot hand? Let's not forget, he didn't start the year as the closer. He just pitched out of his mind. And it was like, he's going to have to start closing games because he's pitching out of his mind. And when he stopped pitching out of his mind, we'll bring someone else. He never stopped. Nardi's sitting there. Feels like he trusts Nardi. I trust Nardi, to be honest. Again, that was a career year for Nardi. Is that repeatable? Who knows? This is the point. The bullpen, what you think you know about the bullpen, you don't. You know nothing. One year to the next, the variance is so high, particularly for these guys that have got basically a 0 proven track records. It's up and down. It's yo-yo dudes. It's a bunch of yo-yos in the pen. One year they're good, next year they're terrible. Then they're traded. Then you churn them. It's just the life of a reliever, I guess. The Marlins have shown they're able to piece bullpens together, though. Irrespective of the names. The names, you don't know the names. But they've shown that they can identify bullpen pieces, especially Kim Ang. She could. The Rays have shown it too, right? So I feel like there's limited amount of risk there. And I feel like that'll be it. As soon as, if Tanner Scott struggles, they'll move on. I'm not going to say he's struggling. No, he is struggling now. But let's hope when the season comes around, he isn't. Overall, you can't help but dream on this rotation. And I'd love to see Tanner Scott deliver a similar year to what he delivered in 2023. It'd be huge for the Fish. And they need him, frankly. They need him. Particularly with the offense still looking like undermanned and under-resourced. To me, the rotation looks super deep, and in terms of ceiling and upside, is head-to-head with any rotation in Major League Baseball. It's the strength of the club. It remains a strength. So even with Braxton Garrett missing for opening day, doesn't concern me. We just roll on. We just roll on, and we see how we go. Thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen, guys. I'll be back tomorrow digging into the Baseball Prospectus's view of the Marlins for 2024. Spoiler alert on that one. They aren't that high on the Marlins, so we're going to work out why they're not that high. Look forward to seeing you then.